What is going on, YouTube people? Neo Cards and Comics here for another edition of the weekly sports card market update. Catching up on news, going over some charts and graphs, talking some smack in fantasy football. Once again, I will save updates on the Content Creator Fantasy Football League to the very end of the video, just in case no one cares about it, which I completely understand. I will say, I'll just throw this little nugget in, I play Jeff Wilson this week. So it is a big week in the fantasy football compound here, down in the basement, struggling over lineup decisions because we cannot lose to Jeff Wilson. That is not something that I could do. If Will Grier was playing this week, I would 100% have picked up and started Will Grier against Jeff Wilson. I was kind of hoping the Jets would have made a play for him or something, but didn't work out that way. We'll talk about that at the very end. I'll run through the lineups really quickly. But for this past week in the sports card world, I would kind of throw it in there at like a medium. It wasn't super crazy. It wasn't super quiet. It was just kind of right in the middle. Lots of different little things going on. I will say locally, I'm running up there this morning while you are all watching this. There is a non-sport / sports card show in Cuyahoga Falls this morning that I am running up to. I have not been to it before. I believe they have sports cards, but I believe the focus is more non-sports, Pokemon and Magic. So I'm going to go check that out, poke around, see what's up with that before the football games kick off today. I know there was a really big show, at least as advertised, in Columbus this weekend, the NC Expo or something. It was at the convention center. I heard very mixed things on that show. If you checked it out, let me know in the comments down below how that show was. I was a little skeptical on it, so I skipped it, and it seems like that was the right call. It just did not give me the greatest vibes in the world, we'll say. Just something felt off about that show. So hopefully it was great if you went, but curious for thoughts and comments on that one down below. Like I said, I did talk to a couple people. But if anyone else popped their head into that one, please let me know. I talked to McCracken Cards. He is down at Collecticon in Charlotte is this weekend, which is a big Pokemon show. He said they did great. That show was extremely busy. Lorcana was flying. Everything was flying. So the non-sports scene continues to be pretty hot. I will say it does seem like Lorcana is starting to cool ever so slightly. Retail stores are getting these mini restocks each week, and it's that little extra supply just seems to be enough to take off the edge, at least, of the ever escalating prices for it. So we'll see what happens over the next couple weeks with that as those begin to dry up. Before we dive super heavy into the new stuff this week, this video is sponsored by channel partner ComC. They are sponsoring all the weekly sports card market updates. They are a fantastic place to buy and sell cards. There is a number of different ways that you could use them. For me, I don't have a lot of time. I tend to be a little bit lazy. I just don't have the mental capacity to sit down and list a bunch of $1 to $5 cards on eBay and standard envelope those things out. If you do and you're into that, hey, more power to you. For me, that is my number one use case for ComC from a selling perspective. Those $1 to $5 cards that I just don't have time to deal with, that just sit around and take up space, I am sending that stuff off. In fact, I am getting ready to send off another box of stuff to them. I am sending that stuff off to ComC, moving it on there for whatever it moves for. I've made some mistakes on some stuff. I've taken some losses. I've made some nice wins. In the net, it's a positive. That's all that really matters to me with this whole situation. And I am using those funds to pick up PC purchases. I've already bought a couple Gwen cards, and I'm kind of building up the bankroll over there for when Marvel Masterpieces hit EPAC. That's my current short-term goal. But I'm using that as a way to get rid of cards that I do not care about, of the low dollar value that would normally just be sitting around taking up space, and turn that into things that I want. Feel free to go check out ComC. Absolutely fantastic platform. You can grade on there, buy, sell, the whole 9 yards. They are a hobby staple, in my opinion, which is one of the reasons why I decided to partner with them. Speaking of marketplaces, let's go ahead and dive into some of the more newsy stuff this week. Golden auctions. Now, I don't know. I didn't pay super close attention to what their old rates were, but I saw some discourse around this, and it seemed not great. They are essentially increasing their fees from the way that I understand it across the board. And they are now also putting in a flat fee for anything under $50 will be charged a $5 fee. I think this is their way to kind of thin the herd a little bit on some of the probably the lower value cards that they don't want to deal with. That I think a lot of that they were getting from PSA directly, because you could easily move your PSA submissions over there to sell. So I'm speculating that's what they're putting this in place for. The other thing that they did, which was not in this email, that slipped in under the cracks, they also increased the buyer's premium. So the buyer's premium now is like 22%. So if you buy on there, you're paying a 22% buyer's premium, which the auction house gets all that in most cases. You can see the breakdown there. And then on the back end, they're taking a seller fee too for stuff under $2,500. Now, on the higher end stuff, you're actually getting a little bit more because you get part of that buyer's premium back to you, the seller, on the higher end. But this is really a shot across the bow at the lower end stuff on that platform. 5% to sell. But then, like I said, on the flip side, on the buyer side, you're paying a 22% buyer's premium. Now, I do not remember what the previous one was. If someone does, feel free to throw it in the comments down below. But some fee restructuring going on over at Golden. Like I said, I think this is kind of, to me, it feels like, hey, we don't really want to deal with $25 to $50 cards as much anymore. Let's kind of move these fees around a little bit, and maybe that'll discourage people from selling that stuff on platform and send it other places. That's the vibe that I take out of this. I don't have any real personal experience using Golden. I've never sold on there. I've bid on stuff, but never won anything. So if you are a heavy Golden user, feel free to let me know how much you think this is going to impact the platform down below. Probably the biggest non-sports story of the week, probably. The two biggest sports stories of the week were the Aaron Rodgers injury, in my opinion, and then we'll talk about the other one here in a minute. But hobby news-wise, this was probably the most noteworthy thing, but it's kind of tricky, and we're going to kind of talk about it here. So if you're not aware, I'm going to use air quotes here heavily, former Backyard Breaks employee posted on the Whatnot Reddit and basically went down a litany of issues. The two biggest ones, and I'm not going to get into the details on this. If you want to read it, you can look it up on Reddit, no problem. But the gist of it was shill bidding on their sales, and let's just call it shenanigans around repacks in regards to, because they shill bid and win sometimes, they take those cards and recirculate them back in the repacks, and the repacks aren't really the best value in the world. No shock there. The problem with this is, and this is where we kind of are in 2023, and why, especially really looking at this from a content creator angle, and I was going to do a separate video on this, and then I just did not have time to get to it, so I pushed it to today. Sometimes we run the jump on this stuff super quick, and immediately it's innocent before proven guilty gets thrown out the window in a lot of these cases. And listen, I have no love for Whatnot or Backyard Breaks. I really don't like either one of them at all. I've done plenty of videos on Backyard and Whatnot that don't paint either one in the nicest light. But to be fair, there's no verification that this person is actually an employee. Now, the stuff that everything that they listed here is plausible enough. They did not go too far out of left field. So my lean is that this is more real than fake, but anytime you have a disgruntled employee, potentially, now he says he did not leave because of that, whatever the case might be, it's just very dangerous to anyone, whether it's someone you like or don't like. Like I said, Backyard and Whatnot are very easy horses to whip. They're very easy to beat up on because we want to beat up on them anyways. It doesn't take much for us to jump on it, to throw fuel on that fire, if you will. But in a case like this, you do got to be a little careful because we don't know 100% for sure that this guy is an ex-employee of theirs. This just could be anybody that posted this on there. They did lock the thread. I heard that it was pulled down. I never saw that. It's been there. It's still there. But they did lock it for comments anyways at one point in time. So you could not comment on it anymore because he said AMA and I'll answer questions in the thread, which he never, it was up for about probably a handful of hours, and people did ask some questions, but he didn't respond to any of them. So, news at 11, least shocking thing ever, Backyard and Whatnot could potentially be doing some shady things, or Whatnot's letting them get away with doing shady things, I should say. If this ends up being true, it's the least shocking thing in the world. But we don't know for sure. So just kind of always keep that in mind on this stuff. A lot of times we want to be first to talking about something or jump out to something immediately or immediately assume X, Y, or Z thing. And two things, if we learn nothing from the card porn situation, an anonymous account hand feeding us what information they wanted to, essentially, that is no different from this. So let's not fall into literally the same traps that we just fell into. And in regards to putting the cart before the horse, we once again just literally saw this play out within the last couple of weeks with the whole chasing cardboard thing. They made some stupid mistakes. Everyone railed them for it. And then we found out after the fact that, oh, wait, some of those things were actually real. Now, it's neither here nor there. I didn't necessarily enjoy the way that they handled everything with that, but it was not the end of the world, in my opinion. I don't want to relitigate that, but you get my point here. The two big takeaways here should be, yes, look at this, put it in the file folder, but let's not go absolutely crazy. That's point one. Point two, did we learn nothing from the things that happened in the last month in the social media sphere of the hobby in regards to anonymous accounts and what they post or don't post, and then putting the cart before the horse in regards to everyone just jumping to assume this is the worst thing ever, only to find out maybe it isn't. Now, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. We don't know. We may never know. Who knows? But that's kind of my thoughts on this. I don't really have any scorching hot takes on the Backyard Whatnot situation. I just more or less wanted to make you all aware that this was out there. To me, the bigger point here is the lessons. Let's learn some lessons from what we just kind of all went through and not literally forget about that weeks later. So just kind of keep that in mind. Next up, upcoming releases. Panini. We have Mosaic Football coming out in just a few short days. Now, where do we sit right now with the 2023 NFLPA situation? Still no word. We're not really probably going to get word. It's just going to come out one day that either everything is a mess, everything's fixed, or somewhere in the middle. They updated their release schedule. I don't have it handy, but they have Donruss Football as now the last release at the very end of November. And then they put one thing that would go past the 90-day assumed, and once again, this is assumed, theory in regards to release window, and that was Donruss complete sets. Now, Lesko tweeted about this. I tweeted back at him and said maybe there's some sort of loophole because Donruss complete sets are the same thing as Donruss Football that comes out at the end of November. They're just in a different box. So maybe that's sort of a gray area that they can get around. I don't know. We're all just kind of guessing here on this stuff. The other thing that gives credence to they're definitely not printing anymore is there is no, and someone DM me this and I kind of noticed it too, but hadn't really talked about it. There hasn't been, at least that I have seen, any Panini Instant NFL cards, which there typically would be by this point. We haven't seen any of those come out. So that leads some credence to maybe they're not printing anything else, or maybe their waiver or whatever they got was good for any printed product as long as it was already off the line or at a certain way down the pipe, they would let it release. So we haven't seen any tentpole releases yet. Prism, Optic, Select, etc. If that holds true, and I don't want to create FOMO around this, but Mosaic could potentially be, at least in the short term, the main product for this year's class. Say what you will about Mosaic. It's a love-hate relationship for a lot of people in the designs on Mosaic, but it is flirting with the Optic Select territory. Prism's number one, and then you have Optic and Select kind of back and forth between each other, and then Mosaic is right there with those other players. So if we don't get the big boys, this might turn into the big boy. What that means for pricing and stuff, I don't know. And it still could all blow up in your face because maybe we go a month where things are ice cold and no product is coming out. And then first of the year, things get resolved. And now we're getting Topps Chrome football and no one cares about Mosaic anymore. All this is just to tread carefully here. I could see this going a lot of different ways potentially. And there are still a million unknowns when it comes to this NFL wax/card situation. The other big story besides the Aaron Rodgers thing in the world of sports was Otani. His oblique injury that he suffered about a week or so ago, he is now done for the season. So he's going to miss basically the entire month. Kind of a weird vibe going on where he cleaned out his locker and just kind of peaced out. Probably not a good sign for him coming back to the Angels. Not like that was a real possibility anyways, most likely. But just some weirdness there all around. We're going to talk more about Otani in a minute when we get the prices, but I just wanted to note this. And for those questioning the betting odds, anyway, I pulled up FanDuel's. Otani is still the landslide leader for AL MVP. Corey Seager is next, but he also missed a ton of games. The AL MVP race is just messy. There's just not a good clear-cut candidate, so there's probably a decent shot Otani is going to hold on and win this thing. And Acuna has kind of reestablished himself as the favorite in the NL with Matt Olson with Mookie Betts, Matt Olson, and Freddie Freeman bringing up the rear there. But Mookie is second in the NL MVP odds. But it looks like there was that kind of weird period there for a minute where it looked like Mookie may have jumped Acuna. It looks like it is going to end up being Otani and Acuna, kind of where we all thought it was going to be when the time Topps Chrome came out. We just kind of took a really weird path to get there. So we'll see if that holds, if anything crazy happens in the AL now that Otani's out. But it looks like that is the path that we are heading down. Speaking of baseball, shout out to some of my friends here. This is the Spittin' Ball Cards podcast, a new podcast / YouTube feed that you could check out. This popped up this week. I just listened to the first episode. There are some very familiar faces on there that you may or may not know. I know at least 3 of them pretty well. My boy Filmington down there in the bottom left, Scotty B from Scotty B Cards in the middle top, and then Teapot, another friend of mine, in the bottom right corner. If you are into baseball cards, this is a very knowledgeable group of people that they have started a new weekly podcast. Highly recommend you go check it out if you like to play in the baseball card world, or maybe you like podcasts over YouTube feeds, or both. Let's go ahead and dive in the charts and graphs. Market Movers, link in the description down below, where you can get 20% off for life and a 14-day free trial. So you can manipulate these charts and graphs any way you see fit and look up what any cards that you want. Baseball first. We'll just leave from baseball, stay in baseball. Julio Rodriguez. Some interesting pricing trends around the 2 guys in baseball that we're going to talk about. One's J-Rod and the other one is Otani. J-Rod's been very hot to close out this year. You saw him on the MVP shortlist. He's playing absolutely fantastic, having a very strong second half of the season. And it is just very interesting to look at his prices when you date back to April 1st. So April 1st, beginning of the season, basically. He was sitting right around 1.8K. He struggled to start the season. He dipped all summer long. This was like $1,000 to $1,200 card. You can see there $990, $1,300, $1K, 1.2, $1K. And this is basically from May all the way to August, late July, early August, essentially up until the National. You can see right here, there was one low sale at 1K. Then it kind of jumped up to around 1,300. Today, we sit here now in mid-September. It is back up to 1.7K and essentially did a little U-shape, a little half oval. We're basically back to preseason prices on this guy. And we talk about this a lot over the years, that not every player, but a lot of times, the best time to buy cards are in season if you believe in the player. If you really believed in J-Rod and he started extremely slow, middle of the season was the best time to buy his cards. That was the cheapest that his card has really ever been, was that middle of the summer. And now it's already rebounding. My guess is this will carry momentum on through the off season and into next season. for him to potentially start strong next year. He is kind of, other than Otani, he's kind of the face of the league. He's everywhere. They love him from a marketing standpoint. He is all over the place. So J-Rod has a lot of hype behind him and is closing the season out pretty well. Now, the interesting thing here is we talked about at the beginning of the season, his prices were here. They dipped way down and now have risen back up to basically where they started. The exact opposite is true of Otani. This is Otani's mainline refractors. This is his PSA 10 regular refractor, prism, and pink refractor. All in PSA 10, all from 2018 Topps Chrome. Once again, going back to April 1st, you can kind of see what these cards were selling for. They slowly went up as the season went along. They got super crazy in the summer, right before the National. His prices and his hype around him was absolutely wild. And then you could see right during the beginning, the mid-August, and this was well before his injury, he really started to tail off. And then obviously now with the Tommy John injury and now the oblique injury, he has really kind of crashed down again. The weird part with him is the question around his pitching future, which we don't know. Obviously, he's going to be back and hitting next year, most likely no problem, and on a new team, most likely. So there's a potential for his market to get juiced back up again. But the pitching here is the great unknown. Does he ever throw again? Is he a closer? Is he a reliever? What do they end up doing with him? There could be an interesting buying opportunity here. I think he still has room to go down because of the unknowns around, is he still a dual threat player or not? But he is actually now cheaper than what he was in April. You can see his refractor. This is going basically from April 1st through today. His baseline refractor from Topps Chrome is down 20%. His prism refractor is down 5%. And the pink is down 5%. And I have to imagine these, once again, have a ways to go. And like I said, over the last 30 days or so, he has really seen the drop off. 50% on his refractor, 50%, 56% on his prism, and 25% on the pink over the last 30 days. Part of that on the pink is because one did not sell for in the first couple weeks of that. Otherwise, it would be a similar fall down. If you go back 60 days, 40%, 40%, 40% across the board. So much of this has happened in the last 30 and 60 days. And once again, then you keep in mind is he was trending down before he got hurt. Then he got hurt, and it's even going down a little bit faster now. So we'll see where the bottom is on Otani. Definitely one of the, I'm not really sure what to do with players as we move into the end of the season here. I think potentially the time to watch his stuff might be right around when the postseason starts, or in the middle of the postseason. We would be in the heart of football season, rather, and the heart of the MLB postseason. So the least amount of eyes possible would be on Otani. And then the postseason's going to end, and he's going to enter free agency potentially. And if he signs with a big name team, which is likely, Dodgers, Yankees, Mets, whatever, he could see a bump up in prices because of that. And then if he starts out next season healthy, at least from a batting perspective, he would have all that offseason momentum carrying him into that. We'll see how this all plays out, but an interesting one to watch given the excitement around Otani that exists. Hell of a baseball player. Hopefully he can get healthy and get back to doing his thing. Let's transition over to football. I wanted to touch on a couple guys we looked at earlier this week that saw some big bump ups now that we have a few more days of sales to kind of play this thing out. Zach Wilson. Oh, never change, hobby. His stuff did spike up and is already starting to pull back slightly as euphoria stage wears off and people realize, oh God, I've bought Zach Wilson cards. What have I done with my life? That being said, over the last 14 days, I just pulled some of his random stuff up here. Green Mosaic up 125%. Field Level Silver PSA 10 up 85%. Silver PSA 9 had more sales, so I pulled that one up 70%. Optic Hollow PSA 10 up 55%. And like I said, in some of these cases, they went up and are actually already trending back down again. So we'll see how he looks this week. Obviously, they won, but he really didn't have anything to do with it. The amount of stories and comments on that video, and then on Twitter replies from that weekend of people talking about how quickly they were listing their Zach Wilsons on ComC or eBay or wherever, and how fast they were selling was just absolutely comical. Once again, never changed sports card world. Tua, the other really big winner of the week. Once again, 14-day charts here. His stuff continues to rise. His is not dipping off as the week goes on. Once again, uber talented. It just really comes down to the concussion thing. Scares the hell out of you on Tua. Silver Prism is now up to almost $700. That's a 40% increase in the last 2 weeks. Silver field levels up 60% and optic hollows up 40% on PSA 10. So Tua, one of the biggest winners of week 1 in regards to a jump up in price and hold. He looked absolutely fantastic. If you were sitting on a bunch of Tua that you bought in the offseason, in my opinion, it's just a risky hold because of the concussions. Really, any football player is a risky hold because of the injuries. I would probably look to at least sell off some. Hopefully you bought multiples, take some profits out of it, cover your costs, and then you could get spicy with the other ones and let them ride with zero cost basis on them. That's generally how I like to handle these things. On the opposite side, people in the red, Aaron Rodgers, slight dip. I just wanted to check in to kind of see how things went with him. Down about 8%. Only a couple sales. One went right after the game, down about 25%, and then the next one went off a little bit higher. So we'll see how this plays out over the long term. He's basically said he is coming back. That this is not the way that he wants to go out. So we'll see what that looks like. If you're buying Aaron Rodgers cards, just wait a little bit. I would assume that his stuff will continue to trend down as eyeballs come off of him, and you have to wait out auctions most likely if you want to get a deal on something. Another one, Joe Burrow in the red. Had a terrible week 1. Didn't play all preseason, obviously. Just a lot of vibes on Burrow heading into the season because of that calf injury and concerns and the whole 9 yards. His stuff has dipped slightly. His Silver Prism is down 26%. This is going back 30 days, by the way. I wanted to catch a little bit of preseason stuff in this one. Silver Prism is down 26%. Field level is down 5%. And his optic hollow is actually up slightly. And actually has the most sales on it out of everything. But his Prism Silver, which is his main, non-contenders auto card, non-RPA, whatever, has come down considerably. Now we'll see what happens this week. I think last year, I know he was terrible in week 1 last year, but I feel like even in week 2 and 3, he was kind of mediocre at best before they kind of came out of it. So if they have another off week this week, that could open up a little bit of a Burrow buying situation if you think he's going to rally back, if you want to play that game. Let's close out here looking at a little NBA because we were running very long, and then we'll look at the Content Creator Fantasy Football League really quickly. SGA, I misspoke a couple weeks ago. He plays for Team Canada, not Team USA. Thank you, comment section. Him and Anthony Edwards were the 2 biggest winners of the summer in regards to that tournament. SGA stuff is up about 20%. This is going over the last 30 days. So basically since the National or just post-National. Anthony Edwards is up 27%. Those were the 2 hottest names. If you're in the NBA world or you're listening to like off-season podcasts or anything like that, or you were following the tournament, those were the 2 guys that got the most buzz, and they definitely saw an uptick. There is some NBA stuff creeping into the green. You look back over summer stuff. Zion Williamson was up slightly. John Morant is up slightly. A few other guys. Maybe we'll do a little bit of an NBA offseason check-in now because we are rapidly approaching the opening of NBA training camps. I will probably fire up an NBA best ball league, at least one on the old Underdog here shortly. I've actually already done a couple, but I'll throw up a private one for the viewers. Maybe we'll kick that off next week. We'll see. If I remember to do it, we'll kick it off next week. I would like to run at least 1, possibly 2 NBA best ball leagues, usually like $5 or $10 or whatever. All right. That is it for this video. We're going to talk about the Content Creator Fantasy Football League really quickly, but if you are not into fantasy football or could care less, I completely understand. So for those of you that are peacing out, have a great NFL Sunday. Peace. Let's go ahead and jump over and look at fantasy football. As I mentioned, I played Jeff Wilson this week. I am 1-0 after trouncing Ziggy in week 1. Neither of us had players in the Thursday game, so we were sitting at 0-0. I took a bad beat, lost J.K. Dobbins for the season last week. Made a few waiver wire maneuvers. Picked up Puka from the Rams, picked up Gus Edwards. The question of the day is, and depending on when you're watching this, I will have had time to potentially adjust the lineup. I have Isaiah Pacheco in there right now. My lean against Jacksonville is to run him out there because that could potentially be a shootout over Gus Johnson and Dalvin Cook. And then beyond that, I'm running out Josh Allen, Bijan Robinson, that question mark at Pacheco, Amon St. Brown, Deebo Samuel, Njoku, Cortland Sutton, Browns defense, and Justin Tucker. And then Jeff, Lamar Jackson, Aaron Jones, which we have some questions on what Aaron Jones' availability is going to be this week. Miles Sanders, CeeDee Lamb, DeAndre Hopkins, Dalton Schultz, Stephon Diggs, Broncos defense, and Brandon McManus. His most logical swap in for Aaron Jones would probably be Tyler Algier. So this is going to kind of be of a weird week because if he swaps Algier in, I have Bijan Robinson and he has Algier. I have Josh Allen. He has Steph Diggs. So going to be kind of a weird matchup this week. Probably going to make this game pretty close in regards to score. We will see what happens. But big, big week as we take on Mr. Sports Card Investor himself. We cannot lose to Jeff Wilson. We cannot do it. I will do this one for the people and try to take him down. Have a great football Sunday, everybody. I am roaming around a non-sports card show quickly in the morning before I run back to get home to lock into football for the day. We will catch you boys and girls on the next one. Peace.